Oh, yes. So we are going to be recording today. So I'll just start over for the purpose of the recording. My name is Erin Mazzoni, and I am a program specialist here at the Haskayne School of Business within the Student Services team. So basically, you are hopefully one-stop shop for all things related to kind of your academics, and potentially some kind of extracurriculars as well. But we'll get into that a little bit later. I am going to share a PowerPoint here. So not to drone on and on with PowerPoint, but it is kind of nice to have a visual. Thank you to all those who said hello in the chat and let us know where you're joining us from and what time it is. That was kind of fun to read through. But I'm just going to pull up this PowerPoint here and we'll get started so that you can see essentially what we're going to be looking at today. So I wanted to just go over the agenda real quick. We are going to do a territorial land acknowledgement. That's an important piece of our culture here, and I'll go into it a little bit more once we get there. And then we actually have Mohammed Kayani here. He is going to be doing a bit of a sample lecture for you today so that you actually get the feeling of what it's going to be like when you're here at the university and taking classes. So we're really fortunate to be joined today with him and going through just a little taste of university lectures. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of pieces that you should be getting excited about, kind of the extras according to, obviously there's going to be academics, and we're going to talk a little bit about ways to differentiate your degree. But also I want to talk about some other pieces that are maybe beyond academics and some of the exciting things that we're doing in the school. I'll talk a little bit about resources, a little bit more about my role and how I support you, and the other resources, other people that are even available to you as well. There is going to be a piece at the end where we're going to have you do a survey, and that survey kind of confirms your participation today. So that's kind of the only way we can track you guys since you come on Zoom in a different capacity. So we will have you do that survey at the end. And then of course, we'll do some Q&A. I'm sure you guys have some questions. So we'll do that kind of closer to the end. So that's kind of the plan. There's a lot to cover in only about an hour, but just wanted to give you the heads up on what we're looking to do today. So going right into that territorial land acknowledgement, I don't know how much you know about our history here in Canada, but essentially we have, a colorful history like most countries, and it's something that we are looking to kind of reconcile and come to terms with and make up for in as best as we can. So at the beginning of many large gatherings, we do something called this territorial land acknowledgement, where we talk about who actually were on the land before us and what that looks like. So I'm going to read it out, and it's just because there are a lot of different names that we want to cover because we want to pay homage to all of those communities that were here before us. So the University of Calgary, located in the heart of southern Alberta, both acknowledges and pays tribute to the traditional territories of the peoples of Treaty 7, which include the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprised of the Siksika, the Piikani, and the Kainai First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda, including Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nations. The City of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Districts 5 and 6. So we like to say on this land and in this place, we strive to learn together, walk together, and grow together in a good way. And the idea is that we want to move forward together in a good way. So thank you for participating in that with us. Further to this now, I'm going to introduce our professor today, Mohammed Kayani. I'm going to read out his bio because there's lots of credentials here and I don't want to get any of them wrong. But Mohammed Kayani is an associate professor in entrepreneurship and innovation and the DBA program director at the Haskayne School of Business, University of Calgary. His teaching and research focus on the areas of digital entrepreneurship, generative AI applications, and entrepreneurial experimentation. He has published in top-tier peer-reviewed journals and presented in international conferences, where he has received multiple Best Paper and Best Reviewer awards. He is also a no-code builder and experimental entrepreneur who blogs about his work at digitvibe.com. He has designed and taught one of Canada's first generative AI and prompting courses at the university level. His other experiences include roles such as business advisor to multiple startups, lab strategist at the Creative Destruction Lab Rockies, and a David Rockefeller Fellow at the Trilateral Commission. So without further ado, I'm going to unshare my presentation so that Mohammed Kiani can share his and allow him to do and join him on a brief lecture. So Mohammed, you can take it away.
Wonderful. Can everybody hear me okay? Awesome. Thank you so much, Erin, for that introduction and land acknowledgement. Let me get into a mini lecture that gives you a snapshot of what it's like sitting in the new generative AI and prompting course at the University of Calgary. This course is something that students from all around campus can take, undergrads, graduates, pretty much it's open to everybody. I think you do need to have some credits already under your belt, so maybe first years won't be able to take it. But the prerequisite is minimal. Just having taken some credits in the past is what it requires. Let me put this in presentation mode. 1 second. Show. And screen share. All right. Let's get into this. So I want to talk about maybe the way to best organize this lecture is to think about what this new generative AI wave means for your career, because there's so many things to cover, but I just want to go through some of the best use cases that we've found for it so far. And how to get better at using it and where maybe the trends are going so you can better understand what you may do for your career when you're deciding your next career steps. So basically by generative AI, I mean things like ChatGPT, Midjourney, Dolly, these tools that you've seen. It's been a very recent advancement in technology. We've really, since 2022, 2023, have achieved a huge leap in AI technology that is being termed generative AI. And that's what I'm talking about today. So you probably have used tools like ChatGPT, and that gives you a feel for what these are. They're basically like really like talking to a human, a very knowledgeable, helpful human, in a way that was impossible just a couple of years ago. So already, many companies are making excellent use of generative AI. Many of them are not really touting it publicly because it often ends up replacing workers, and they end up laying off humans because the AI works so well. In some other cases, we do see it not working well and making the news for some reason or other, like making false statements, hallucinations, misinformation, incorrect information, biased outputs. But the reality is many companies are actually able to make good use of generative AI. in very productive ways. Perhaps a really good example is Klarna that recently came out and said, you know what, with OpenAI's technology, with ChatGPT on the back end of our customer support chatbots, we've been able to get it to do the work of 700 full-time agents. And the quality of the work is better. It's leading to less repeat inquiries, resolving issues on average in 2 minutes compared to 11 minutes previously. It's able to work in 23 markets, 24/7, never gets tired, and 35 different languages, all with basically ChatGPT's capabilities. And so they estimated that this capability is driving $40 million of profit just in the first few months of 2024. And this is just one company that's basically, sorry, there's something wrong with my voice today. That's basically just came out and announced how it's been using this technology. Many companies are not really announcing it, but a lot of researchers are doing work on it to figure out what the best use cases are. And researchers are being more open about it. Of course, they do research to publish their results, whereas companies sometimes want to be private with what they're doing. So one of the use cases that researchers have found in business settings to be super helpful with ChatGPT and that sort of technology is idea generation. In one study, they got MBA students from a top business school to generate ideas about a shoe product. They got 200 ideas from the students and 200 ideas from ChatGPT. In this study, they actually didn't put that much effort into getting ChatGPT to be particularly creative. The prompts that they were giving ChatGPT were just asking it for ideas in a simple way. We know that you can actually be much more complicated in the way that you ask for outputs from ChatGPT, and that's called the skill of prompting or prompt engineering. But in this study, even without much prompt engineering, they found that out of the top 40 ideas, a full 35 of them, 87%, were the ones generated by ChatGPT. So we figured out that not only is this technology great for customer service, but it's actually a really great creative tool for creativity. And this is funny because for many, many years, scientists thought that the first things AI will be able to do and replace are the very routine tasks. And it will take many, many more years for the AI to be able to be truly creative. And we've seen that actually it's been almost the opposite. These neural networks like ChatGPT are actually pretty good at being creative, but kind of bad at some structured things like doing math, partly because they are unlike traditional algorithms that can do structured things like math. A neural network, which is the technology behind ChatGPT, is apparently actually more good at unstructured things that are more like pattern recognition. And that's creativity falls into that camp. Another thing that we always thought AI was going to be really bad at was empathy. We always thought that, okay, maybe it can do cool things, solve interesting math problems, do structured and routine things, but it will never be as human or as empathetic as a real human. And in that case, it surprised us as well. So for another study that I want to point out is one that compared ChatGPT's responses to medical questions, both in terms of quality and in terms of empathy, comparing with real world doctors or physicians that responded to the similar medical questions in an online forum. And basically, the two graphs that you see on this slide show that ChatGPT beat the physicians on quality. But more importantly, ChatGPT beat the physicians pretty heavily on empathy. Um, of course, here the respondents to this research did not know which one was the physician and which one was ChatGPT responding to their questions. There have been some studies that kind of show if people like the response and think it's empathetic, once you tell them that that response was AI generated, they change their opinion about it. But in this particular study, there's an indication that when they don't know which is AI and which is human, they actually prefer the AI response. And this really gets you thinking because um, many people thought that we are going to have a future where, if we try to replace humans with AIs, it'll be such a bad experience for humans because we like talking to other humans, the emotions involved, the empathy involved, how they understand us. AI is never going to be like that. We imagine this cold robotic sort of AIs of the future, and we were kind of scared of that, what would happen if they replaced humans. But now, given what we're understanding about how empathetic AI is able to be and how much humans actually prefer that, we might end up having the opposite problem, which means that we might prefer talking to robots and AI so much that we end up fearing talking to humans. Maybe similar to how sometimes we are scared of picking up the phone and having a call. We'd rather text because texting gives us a better interface. We're better able to think through what we want to say. Whereas calling someone and talking live to them might make us anxious a little bit because we don't have time to think and it could be awkward. A similar thing could happen in the future where we prefer talking to our AIs and getting them to convey our message to other people because the AIs are going to be infinitely patient with us. They're going to understand exactly what we want. They're going to cater to our needs and our communication styles and our preferences so much that we're going to get addicted to talking to the AIs, and maybe we will prefer that, and maybe we will think, oh man, having to talk to another human is going to be so cumbersome today. Maybe I'd rather just get my AI to talk to their AI instead of me talking to the other human directly. So this is, I think, one of the trends that we are seeing uh, going forward. Another thing is that now that we have these AI brains, we are able to give them all sorts of bodies and tools. People are working right now on how to give the basic tools that we use, like our keyboard and our mouse and our computers, to AIs and let them run our mouse and keyboard for us. Many people are combining robotics and these AI brains and giving the brains robot bodies that can move around and do different things. Some of them are humanoid bodies, but many of them are not. Depending on the task, we may want the AI to have a humanoid body or not a humanoid body, might be better for many other tasks. But they're going to be able to do many things that humans can't do, such as maybe preparing a place to live for humans on another planet. Um, Another interesting thing is that now that we can put all our aggregated knowledge and um, a way to communicate in one of these AI brains, it's possible that our first contact with alien civilizations will not actually be through humans, but an AI that represents us. And it's also very possible that when an alien civilization is finally able to reach us, they might reach us through an AI representative of theirs rather than their physical bodies, because of course organic bodies have many biological needs that make long-term space travel difficult. So it's probably much more likely that our AIs will meet each other or an AI will meet the other person. But just this is just an example to get your minds flowing about the possibilities. In the real world, um, little examples of this are happening in the sense that people are using AI generated text as what they call a linguistic transport layer, which means that uh, you want to say something, the AI puts that what you want to say in a nice form of a text and sends it to someone. That other person also wants to see what you said, but they don't want to read the whole text, so they get the AI to summarize the text and read the summary, which means that the text in between wasn't actually fully read by anyone, not by you and not by the reader. It just served as a linguistic transport layer. So this is another thing to think about in terms of the directions that humans are heading with this technology. Now, how can we get better at using it? This is an important question because it doesn't come with a manual. These AI technologies have a property called the black box issue in machine learning, meaning that once the data training is done on the neural network behind the AI, nobody really understands what the trained model means. It's just a series of mathematical formulas that represent an abstraction of the patterns found in the training data. And even the computer scientists that trained the AI model will not really be able to understand what it means. The only thing we can do at that point, it will look like a brain to us, like a brain where if we look at it, it just looks like a series of electric signals moving between neurons. Looking at a map of someone's neurons really doesn't help us understand what they're thinking. The only way we can understand what they're thinking is to talk to them. And that's why the only way we can really understand how ChatGPT and these AI models work is to use them, play with them, talk to them, see how they work. And ever since they've been released, people have been making new discoveries every once in a while in terms of how they work, what things they're capable of, ways in which they may break if you use them in certain ways or behave in ways they're not supposed to behave. Um, because really nobody fully knows, and it's a collective discovery process. I tell my students in class that even in this class, during this term, you might be able to discover something about how ChatGPT works that no one had found before. So discovering these things and figuring out how to use ChatGPT is really the art of prompting, the skill of prompting. Sometimes they call it prompt engineering to sort of emphasize how complicated it can be. And it is a knowledge and skill, and it's also weird. So it's not always exactly intuitive what prompts might work well and what prompts don't. So I'll give you another example from the research on idea generation. This time, researchers put more effort into designing the prompts for idea generation, and their goal was to increase the variance of the ideas. Not just increasing the average quality, but to increase the variance so that sometimes you can get like really outlier good ideas. Um, so they tried many different prompting strategies in this study. For example, one of them was to give the ChatGPT a whole bunch of information about creativity tools that was published in the Harvard Business Review and telling it to use those ideas when it's coming up with ideas. Another prompt they used was just pretend you're Steve Jobs and come up with ideas. A very simple one, but contains a role-playing kind of aspect to it, which is one of the techniques for prompt engineering. And an interesting thing that they found was that the Steve Jobs prompt worked really well, and the Harvard Business Review stuff didn't work that well for this particular study. And this is interesting. We need to discover these things. We need to study these things to see how ChatGPT works. But often we don't really have good theories for why this is the case. Why would it work better if it's pretending to be Steve Jobs? Which means that so much is yet to be discovered about how to use ChatGPT and many of these AI technologies. Some researchers are employing theories that are important for human psychology and human behavior, and they're testing it on ChatGPT. And there's a whole new literature being created out of this called machine psychology literature. So this study, for example, tested 3 different theories of human psychology in the way that they prompted ChatGPT. And they found the ones that I've highlighted with yellow arrows were the ones that they found to have a significant effect on ChatGPT. So not everything that works on humans works on ChatGPT, but some of it does. And there are some things that work on ChatGPT, but maybe not work on humans or would totally backfire if you used it on humans. So for example, these studies that have studied machine psychology have found prompts that are very surprising. They found that emotional manipulation can work on ChatGPT. Offering it rewards or tips can work on ChatGPT. Telling it to take a deep breath and think through a problem step by step has been found to be a really good way to prompt for ChatGPT and these large language models generally. But these are possibly things that you would think, okay, there's a theory behind them. Like there's theories of human psychology that would explain why some of these prompts work well. But AI is so weird that sometimes really we don't have good theories for why some prompts work well. In this one study, they got the AI to suggest prompts for itself. It's a technique called prompt optimization, where they get the AI to design prompts systematically and then test them. And then so they were able to test hundreds of different prompts and compare their performance in solving different tasks with generative AI. And you will not believe the one prompt that turned out to perform the best in this study. I've basically put the prompt on the right-hand side of the screen here. It's basically a prompt that pretends that you're writing a captain's log in the Star Trek universe, and then you're asking ChatGPT something. No human, I don't think, would have been able to guess that pretending to be in the Star Trek universe is a great prompting strategy and will perform really well with AIs. But that's one of the things that this study found, and it shows that AIs are a little bit weird. They are, when we say machine psychology, it really is not fully like human psychology, although we're using some human psychology theories. But really, the AIs are weird, and we have to figure out how they work. When it comes to image inputs as well, for example, people when the new GPT-4V came out and it's able to read pictures, they're testing different ways. If you want to ask it how many people in this picture are wearing helmets, does it work if you give it the full picture or if you separate the pictures and then ask it how many of those pictures are wearing helmets, which ones work better. We don't know. We have to test them. In this case, they found that if you separate the pictures, it works better. If we wanted to count the apples in this other picture, what prompting strategy works the best? They tried 4 or 5 different strategies here. The one that worked the best to get the AI to correctly count the apples was this prompt. You are an expert in counting things in the image. Let's count the number of apples in the image below, row by row, to be sure we have the right answer. And this worked well. It was able to solve the problem. Whereas something like count the number of apples in the image, let's count the apples row by row, this still didn't work as well. So it's really a learning process to figure out how these AI models work best. So other than learning the prompting, another way to get better at generative AI and using these tools is to learn how to build with them. Going into ChatGPT and just talking to ChatGPT is not the only way to use it. You are actually able to build with this technology in really easy ways. And my favorite way to build with generative AI technology is just to use no-code solutions. With just drag and drop technology, you can easily build solutions. So I'll show you an example of something that I built. If you go to my blog.com, digitvibe.com/networking, you'll see a simple form there. And that form is really part of a no-code built email bot software that I built completely with no code. So I used a no-code solution for form building called Tally. Once you fill in the form, it sends the data to Google Sheets to store the data in a single place. Then it uses Zapier, which is an API connector tool. It connects different tools to each other to call OpenAI's ChatGPT, tell it to compare your input information with some of the things that I have told Zapier about myself. And then based on that, it will send you a Gmail, it'll send you an email using my Gmail that will give you some ideas for how you and I can collaborate with each other based on what it knows about me and what it knows about you. So it's a very simple email bot. I was able to create it in less than 20 minutes just with no code tools. And most people are not aware that you can build something like this. This is what my Zap would look like on Zapier when I built this. So I want to end by just giving 2 important warnings that I give in my classes about using AI tools like ChatGPT. One of them is that AI generated work is your work and you hold responsibility for it. This is my philosophy. I know a lot of people are still debating this and it's not a point of consensus. But my philosophy is that if you generate novel work with ChatGPT and it's not like anything anyone has seen before, it's really novel, not plagiarized, then I don't think it's plagiarism to copy and paste that and send it to someone. As long as you take responsibility for it, as long as you have read it yourself and you agree that that's what you want to say, you take responsibility for it. When you send someone AI generated text and you don't disclose that it's AI generated, you're basically signing a social contract that says, I take responsibility for this text. I am saying this text. And so that is very important to remember. You can never get out of the responsibility and say, oh, well, that was just AI generated. I didn't mean to say that. If you sent it to someone and you didn't disclose that it was AI generated, it should be treated as your work and you hold responsibility for it. Another warning that I want to say is that using AI a lot does weaken some of your cognitive muscles. It's like any other technology. I'm not good at horseback riding. Most people aren't. because we're not riding horses regularly in our society anymore. And similar things are going to happen with many other technologies. I'm not good at handwriting that much anymore. My handwriting is terrible because I have been typing for so much in my life. And similar thing is going to happen with AI. It's going to weaken some of our cognitive muscles. And we are just starting to learn exactly what those effects are going to be. And some of them we may not like. We may not like what it does to some of our cognitive muscles in the long term. And some of them may turn out to be actually better than we thought. It might actually strengthen some new cognitive muscles to use AI a lot in our lives. But it is very likely to be weakening some cognitive muscles. And some of the research that is starting to come out is showing that using AI excessively is going to make us sometimes sleep behind the wheel or sort of weaken our thinking powers on some aspects. So it's still to be seen exactly what those changes are in the human brain that are going to happen in the long term with the use of AI. But just be warned that excessive use of AI can weaken some of your cognitive powers. Thank you. This was an example of what you might see in my generative AI course at the university. And some of this content I also teach to Master of Management students in the Haskayne School of Business. And also, we're going to be releasing some of this content for non-credit courses that are open to the general audience through the UCalgary No Code program. And you can learn more about that at ucalgary.ca/no code. Thank you so much, Erin, for inviting me. That's for my mini lecture.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mohammed. We really appreciate your time today. And I found that really fascinating. I obviously don't use ChatGPT as much as perhaps all of you do, but I still find it a very fascinating topic and really enjoyed your lecture. So thank you for that. One of the things I really took from that is that it seemed that ChatGPT does better if it gets that positive feedback. And I found that interesting because my 7-year-old son operates much the same way. So I get it. Anyways, thank you so much. I will kind of say that we don't really have built-in time for questions about the lecture, but I can absolutely connect you. Mohammed, if you have a moment to just throw in a good contact, maybe email for you in perhaps the chat, and then the students could reach out if you're open to that with any questions that they might have. But otherwise, I can certainly connect them as well. We'll do my email a little bit later on. So thanks again. Okay, fabulous. So what I want to do is just kind of go into a few pieces about the program itself. Now, I'm sure you all have questions about things like, your courses and registration and all of that. There are going to be other events. There's resources that you can look at. Today, we just kind of wanted to give you an idea of things that happen at the university within the Haskayne School of Business, and just kind of talk about those exciting things that make our business school stand out a little bit more. So we're going to go over a few of those things. One of those things is behind me. This is a picture of our new building. It's been here for, I guess, a couple of years now. We moved in November about 2 years ago. So yeah, so it's a pretty new building, lots of beautiful lecture spaces, as well as spaces to enjoy studying and all of that. So yeah, we're pretty excited about it. But it's called Matheson Hall. And quite a few of your lectures are going to be there. So that's just something to keep in mind. I'm going to bring up the PowerPoint again. Just bear with me one moment. Here we are. And just going to put it in presentation mode so it looks prettier. Okay, perfect. So I just want to chat, like I mentioned, about some highlights about the school. Okay, so we'll start really quickly within the academic piece. So this is surrounding your actual schooling, taking classes, taking courses. Okay, The degree itself is 40 courses, all right? You're going to take 40 courses over the course of 4 to 5 years. So that breaks down to about 10 courses a year, or some students do 8. So they do 4 in fall, 4 in winter, and they take kind of that 5 years. But obviously there's a lot of kind of wiggle room there, and how you actually want to roll that out is up to you. But ultimately, within those 40 courses, you're going to be taking, just like in high school, a mix of core courses and options. And within that, you're going to have some kind of very clear courses that you must take, and very specific ones that you're expected to take alongside your other colleagues. But then we also have room for you to specialize and potentially focus on an area that you're more drawn to. Entrepreneurship and innovation being one of them, which is Mohammed's area. So you can kind of focus on those areas if you wanted to. But we have 16 different areas of specialized learning, which you can choose as part of your concentration within business. We also have things like combined degrees. You can add a minor. You can do something like an embedded certificate. All of those terms seem kind of odd to you potentially, and maybe not something you've ever heard of before. But ultimately, what it's referring to is the amount of courses you spend focusing on one area, okay? So something like a minor is usually you're taking 10 of your options to focus around one area, and that becomes a minor, okay? So it's an additional credential. Combined degrees usually means that your options become the core courses of another degree, and vice versa. Embedded certificates, all that means is that some of the courses that are required for their certificate are already part of your degree. So you're taking them anyway, but then you choose to take a couple of options that are from a list that are part of this certificate. And again, you get a different credential for that, okay? So ultimately what we're talking about is a different way to differentiate your degree from your colleague. You have a minor, or you did an embedded certificate, or perhaps you did a combined degree, or you're doing a concentration in entrepreneurship and innovation or business technology management, right? So those are kind of all the areas that you can play around with, and not something you have to decide on right now. It's just something to keep in mind and explore. Once you're kind of in your first year and taking your classes and talking amongst your peers and hearing from your professors, that's when you can start to really explore some of these areas and really think about them, okay? The other thing I like to talk about a lot is international exchange. So some of you are even coming from an international location to join us in Calgary, but you could also be going on an exchange. So sometime, usually about 3rd year or later, you could be looking at going abroad elsewhere, but still paying University of Calgary tuition. So it allows you a little bit more access to the rest of the globe, which is becoming smaller and smaller these days. But you could then just be paying tuition at the University of Calgary still, while taking those courses from another institution abroad. Great opportunity, but again, not something you necessarily have to do yet. Something you can do, in you're thinking about it in 2nd year and actually going abroad, usually 3rd year or later. We also have an honors program. So an honors program is a little different than something you might do in high school. High school, usually honors means that, you're at a certain level academically. The honors program at the university level means that you are actually looking into a thesis or a researchable question, and you're working with a faculty member, so a professor, and actually exploring a research thesis. And putting together, a research program in order to do surveys potentially, or experiments to actually gather data, go through data, and then make recommendations accordingly. So it's a little bit more intense than just doing well academically, although there is a component to that. And again, it's not something that you would look at in your first year anyways. There are some courses that we would like to see you have before you actually are eligible for that program. So something you can look into a little bit further, but just one more thing that could set you apart within your degree. We've also got some really cool courses. We've got experiential learning, which means that you're actually out doing things, you know, and participating in real world experiences. Our Haskayne Wilderness Retreat is exactly what it sounds like. You actually go, it's sort of like a mini Survivor, where you go out in the summer, usually end of summer. So, you know, end of August kind of time frame. And you're out in the Kananaskis, which is our mountain area here in Alberta. And you spend a week out there with classmates. But then my understanding is that the last night there, you are expected to essentially survive on your own for the one night. Now, obviously, there's a bunch of survival and safety measures in place, but ultimately, the idea is that you are able to sustain yourself based on what you have learned. And it kind of connects you to the land, which we would really like to have more of a connection to, especially in the business sector as we move forward here in Alberta. And then we also have a student-led investment fund. So anyone thinking about kind of that investment world or looking into finances as a future, you could be looking at real-world experience where you're actually handling funds throughout your time here at the university for the student-led investment fund. So that's just one of those areas as well. Some of the quasi-academic. So there's still an academic component, but there's also an extracurricular piece. So we've got the co-op program or an internship. So that is available to you guys through the Bachelor of Commerce here. And essentially the way it works is you are indeed earning money while you're doing it. And you take time off of classes to go and work. And you can do it for as short as 1 term. Although the requirement is that you do 2 terms. But you could do 1 term at one place and another term at another placement. And then you could do something as long as a full year as an internship. So ultimately, it's an opportunity for you to earn some money, network a little bit, get out into the industry, and really kind of take part in a real world experience while also kind of learning how to speak about the skills you're developing, how to have conversations with your managers and higher ups and supervisors. So it's a really great way to break into that field while you're here. We have some exciting lecture series and events, programs, projects, everything that is listed there. Essentially, we have a lot of networking opportunities. We have industry that come on campus and hold networking opportunities, recruitment events. So really great connections within the community. We do case competitions, which essentially what that means is you're, brought into a room, you have a group, you participate as part of a group, and you're given a problem, a real world industry problem. And then you as a group have a couple of hours in order to work through the problem, come up with the recommendations that you would make, and then you would present that to the client, essentially. And you're competing, is your solution the best one present? And we have had many of our, students within the Haskayne School win those competitions. So it's really great real world experience as well. We have student clubs here on campus, of course, lots within Haskayne. Almost all of those concentration areas that I mentioned earlier have their own club as well. So that's where you can get things like previous exams to be studying. You can access potentially tutors. You can attend networking events if that is the area you are going to look for, employment in when you graduate. But the other thing about student clubs that is really great is the opportunity to get involved at, potentially a leadership level, right? You could be looking at being a vice president of a club, and that looks great on a resume as well. So yeah, lots of opportunities to be in governance there. And then we do have some centers that also offer a lot of events, competitions, scholarships, and all sorts of things of that nature. So great pieces of our quasi-academic areas. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on is kind of the extras. So we do have 10,000 Coffees, Haskayne Connect. Both of those are areas that you can get involved in. Again, kind of in that network feel. We talked about different industry leaders that come on campus and do recruitment events. So this is kind of ongoing all throughout the year. And then we also have a real strong commitment to EDIA. So we are looking to be equity-based and looking into that diversity and inclusive and accessibility. We want to strive to be at the forefront of that because ultimately in the world of business, it's something that we all need to be way more cognizant of. So we're really excited to have someone dedicated, even within our office, that is doing a lot of research in this area and promoting events. We had a whole EDI week most recently, where there were lots of events tailored to neurodiversity and inclusivity and all of the things of that nature. So really wonderful direction that our school is going in. We're going to just watch a little video here, if you'll permit me and join me on this journey. What is this?
I'm Rex, the UCalgary mascot and #1 Dinos fan. This incoming class is looking dynamite. Cheering for dinos is my thing. Without you guys, I'd be a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Jurassic times called for Jurassic measures, so I've got a Rarsum challenge just for you. Keep an eye on your inbox. You'll receive more details shortly. This challenge will be online, not on the field. So you won't have to worry about getting dinosaur. Complete my challenge and will be entered to win the UCalgary Rex's Challenge Award valued at 1,000 Canadian dollars. Be sure to watch your email for more instructions after the event. Go Dino!
Go Dinos! Thank you for indulging that. Yes, definitely watch for more information about that. It'll come through to your inbox. But $1,000, right? That's going to go far. So definitely something to keep in mind. We are going to progress here. Okay, so just a couple of pieces I want to touch on to finish off, a couple of resources available for you. If you remember the movement of Find Waldo, I don't know. See if you can find me in this picture. I am in there somewhere. This is a picture of the interior of Matheson Hall. We have the social stairs. And this was kind of one of our opening days. The whole faculty joined us on the stairs and we got a faculty-wide photo. So kind of a fun little thing to do. But yes, so see if you can find me on there. There's no prize, just bragging rights. But I did want to go through just a couple of pieces about the resources that are available to you. So as a student, obviously you're going to have a lot of questions, and that's perfectly natural and perfectly expected. When you are looking for questions about the Bachelor of Commerce, so the actual structure of the degree, how it works, where you register, etc., you would be coming to student services and looking for program advising. I myself am a program specialist. There are about 6 of us on the team, and we're available for drop-in appointments and pre-booked appointments as well. So you can certainly be looking to do that once you're here. We do also offer Zoom appointments, although those tend to be something, again, that you can book once you're here. If you're kind of off campus for the day, that's totally fine. You can request that it's virtual. And then we do hold drop-ins, usually in the afternoon. So if you're on campus and you just have a quick question, you can pop in and see us. Our email is there as well. So undergraduate@haskayne.ucalgary.ca is a great way to get in touch with us as well for questions. It's also a way that I can connect you with Mohammed if you had any further questions, although I did notice he put his email in the chat, so you can take a look there and reach out directly. But either way, we'll make sure to get you connected. So yeah, we ideally want to be your first stop for kind of all things academic. So when you're looking at kind of the program itself, you know, ways to kind of differentiate things like dual degrees, minors, that sort of thing. We can have those conversations with you when you're there, right? So your first year, you're really going to be taking skill development type courses, the math, the stat courses, economics, that sort of thing. You'll take a few introductory business courses, but your first year, really, you're just going to be focusing on, you know, taking a couple options, potentially exploring what the university has to offer, as well as those kind of building block courses, the econs, the stats and the math and that sort of thing, okay? So just keep that in mind. Don't stress too much about all these things in your first year. It's just stuff that we want to put in the back of your mind to think about. Within our office, we also do the co-op advising as well as the exchange advising. So when you're starting to think about that, usually in your second year, you can come in and have an appointment to ask a little bit more about that. Although I will take a moment at the end here just to show you our website, because obviously we know that you have questions and you maybe want to start looking. So I do want to point key areas for you to look on our website. We also have a career advising team. So when you start getting there, again, further on, but perhaps even as part of a co-op placement, you can be meeting with some of our co-op advisors and talk about resume building, mock interviews, potentially even just starting out with a job search. What's that look like? How does that go? So really awesome resources there. And then we also have the academic development specialist. Her name is Susan. She is actually a registered social worker, and she obviously can be very helpful when it comes to academic development. So if there's that one course that's giving you a little bit of trouble, she has some great resources. And honestly, she's just a really great listening ear too. So, you know, you're going to find potentially that you are coming from and you are at the top of your class and you come into university with all the other students that are the top of their class. And suddenly it's a little bit more of a challenging environment and the competition feels a lot fiercer and you're not kind of used to that. And there's a lot going on. So Susan is a wonderful listening ear for that. Really great resource. She can connect you with a lot of other resources as well. We're here for you. We know how it goes. And, you know, give yourself a lot of grace. First year is about learning not only the content of your classes, but about yourself and how you handle this kind of transition into post-secondary, okay? And then we also have a business library as well as a business librarian, and really great resource for you, obviously, when you're writing papers and looking to do research in this realm. But additionally, you can also find kind of past exams there as well. I know I went in there a couple of times to pull some past exams to study. So the clubs offer those. You can also find them within the business library, depending on the course. And then, of course, research there. So that's kind of the main pieces of the support and resources that we have. I'm going to leave this up for a little bit because we need to confirm your participation today. So if you guys have a smartphone, you want to scan this code and fill in the survey, okay? Because this way you're able to essentially confirm that you were here today. And that way we can track the fact that you came. And I think that I don't know if that's tied potentially to the email that might be coming out later for Rex's challenge. And it could also be tied to registration and all of that good stuff. So please do scan this. I'll give it a few minutes. I've noticed there's a couple chat that I have missed, but there's also a Q&A function. So I'm going to leave this up. And if you want to put in any kind of questions, I'd be happy to chat about kind of anything and all things related. I'm going to pull up the chat here to see if I missed anything. And No, it was just that I had to make sure to put this up for you. So that's fabulous. Perfect. Okay. So yeah, so feel free to reach out either in the chat or ideally in the Q&A if you had a question. I will either answer it orally or I will answer it in the chat or in the Q&A itself. I also recognize you're trying to do a survey while I'm talking. So I can give you a minute to do that. But yes, happy to chat about any kind of questions. Really, really excited to have you guys come. Really appreciate you joining us today. And, you know, I want to let you either go to bed, because for some of you it's really late, or let you get back to the rest of your day. So thank you again for joining us. We really look forward to having you. And one last thing I'll say is that this is the start of events that are going to be coming up, right? So this is just, we're really excited to have you. Here's some exciting things to think about, you know, as you make decisions about your future in post-secondary. But there's going to be events for registration. There's going to be orientation. If you're thinking about residence, there's going to be move-in dates. So this is just the start. Don't feel like you have to have everything figured out today. Today is just, you know, here's some things that set us apart. So thanks again for coming. I will leave it at that. But if you have any other questions, feel free to throw them in the Q&A, send us an email if you have things to get to, but do be sure to fill in that survey. So again, I'm Erin. Thank you so much for joining us.